Hi, welcome to a Roboflow training movie. In this training movie, I'm going to show you the best way to upgrade a Roboflow. So first of all, Roboflow cannot have a more recent version than your Cumulus server. So if you want to go to the latest version of Roboflow, make sure that your Cumulus server has at least also that version. You can always check your version of your installation here into your Roboflow folder. So, and there's a version.txt that shows you what the release version of your Roboflow installation was. You can also inside Roboflow check the real version of Roboflow, which is on one hand the version of the web interface, and on the other hand the version of your Roboflow installation. As you can see, I have here a more recent test development version installed than the actual version that is the native Cumulus out-of-the-box installation. Good. So how do we uninstall Roboflow? Well, first of all, you go here and you uninstall the service. So uninstall Roboflow. You have to make sure that it is not completely uninstalling Roboflow, and the naming is a little bit wrong. Here, this is the real uninstaller of Roboflow. The uninstall and install Roboflow that you find here is actually just the installation of the service. So this should maybe better be called uninstall Roboflow service, but an install Roboflow service. But it doesn't matter. Here we can uninstall Roboflow, so I'm going to run this as an administrator to make sure that I have the permission to remove the service. So if we have a look at the service, it is there is no Canto Roboflow service here anymore. Second thing to do is now to go to your installation folder of Roboflow and to rename it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, look, this is my older version. So now I have my Roboflow older version here, and now I can start the installation. You go to your Canto community website and you download the latest version. I already did that, and so now I am going to execute that installer. Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry, wrong button. Very nice of Windows to try to protect me, but I want to execute this anyway. And again, run this anyway. You see, people are taking very good care of my computer. What's this? Yes, of course. And then we're going to run the installer. I'm not going to wait through the whole installer. You know how that goes. It's of course super important that you make sure that you have that you install it in exactly the same location. So I will be pausing and coming back to you in a moment. So I come to the place where I want to install my Roboflow. So I actually want to put it in exactly the same spot where it was before, and that saves a lot of installation trouble. So this was my original one. So I'm going to go inside here and I'm going to say, look, I want to put it almost to there, not exactly to there. You will see in a moment. So I'm going to say I want to install it in the original folder that it was installed in. And I say next. And then it's asking me, yeah, where is your Cumulus server? I checked the mark that it should also update the server plugin, which requires its knowledge of where the server is. And of course, it finds this server here. As I know, Okay, so it cannot be replaced. You need to stop. Okay, good. So it forces me to also stop my Cumulus service because I want to update the Cumulus server plugin as well. So if you don't update your Cumulus server plugin, then of course that is not required. So I am going to stop this, and I'm going to stop my Cumulus service. Make sure that if you have anything else running on that Cumulus server, like clients that might be open over Cumulus Scheduler, that you first close them. Then I go back to my installation and I say next, and yes, and there it goes. And so now it's installing. So I let this run and I'll come back to you when this is finished. So the installer has finished, so I click OK. And so I need to here start my Cumulus service again, and whatever other services you might have stopped. Now this installer may also have installed already your Canto Roboflow service. You need to stop it, and because there's nothing running in it anyway, it's an empty installation. And what is very important is that if your previous Roboflow service was running on a certain user, you have to reconfigure and go in here in this service and make sure that you have this running as the same thing. If, which is sometimes exceptionally done, which I don't recommend, if you renamed your service in the previous installation, then also please go and rename your service again here. But you need to log in as, so you might have to change these. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to back to the installation folder. So we have the old one, which we want to keep. And what do we want to do now is we actually want in this new installation, we want to overwrite everything that we had in the old installation as things. So you have to take a look in your original installation. This is a bad folder, so I can delete this. This was from testing, but you just have to look in here and see if you have any folders that and like save approval that looks like a tool. So those things, and also the workflow file, those things look like being added afterwards. So also make sure that you pick those up. Then further down, it might be that you have maybe here your roboflow.xml is something you need to take, and this roboflow global param.xml is what you need to take. And if there are any other files that were added in the past to here or modified, so what could also be something that was modified is the Roboflow restart service. Maybe you had a personalized restart service that did more than the out of the box. I have another batch file here that I added. So anything that you might have personalized in the past, you need to pick up and bring it over to the new installation. So I'm copying this, and I'm copying this to my new Roboflow folder. So paste. So to make sure that I have everything in here. So now I have in the same folder name, I have the same settings. So anything that was pointing to this folder will still be pointing to this folder. So you don't have to do anything special. Then additionally, what you need to check is that if in your old installation you had a modification done to your wrapper conf here, to the wrapper conf, then it is very important that either you do that same modification again and maybe that you compare to what is different between this file and what is different between the new file. You cannot simply copy this over, because it might be that this new version of Roboflow has new libraries new versions of libraries, and if these new versions of libraries are specified in this wrapper.conf, then you cannot just copy over your old. So this is the only tricky part which you have to be very careful about and check very thoroughly. So I'll give you an example here of I will be comparing this one with my origin with the one from the installation, just by removing this, and I could say compare. So I did a lot of modifications because I play around, of course, a lot with this, but out of the box you might not have that much difference. But if we have a look at, for instance, and the most important part is the class path 1 line, what might be different is, again, and there might be a different version of a library in there. So that is super important that that you don't touch that. So usually I suggest if you do any changes, and you can see here, for instance, here there's now a commons IO 2.4 in that first line, which was not present in the previous version. So you can see that there was clearly a difference. So if you ever do modifications to this file, if you need to add, I always add them in additional class path, and you can see that those are very easy to move over. I can very simply, oh, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to go here, and I wanted to go to the first one. And so you can see the difference here. I only want this part to be moved over in my new version because I'm using this in some of my workflows, and so I need this. So the only difference that stays is the first line, and we need to keep that different because and then we can do if we want, we can do a refresh to see. So you see there's only difference, and this difference needs to stay there because it's really different. There is actually a commons IO in the old version apparently that if we look in the new version is maybe not there. That might have been something that was added by me or that was removed by Canto. So just to be on the safe side, I don't see any other commons IO in the list here. So to be on the safe side, I'm just going to say, okay, maybe this was something I added. So I'm going to add this again. So I'm going to add this again and put this here at the end. So now I know that both files will be not 100% in sync, but at least contain the same elements. Then there's another couple of things that I have in here that out of the box traditionally you will not have, but this is my debugging. So I have my debugging parameters, and then you can have maybe settings like initial memory, which might be different, wrapper.java.init memory, and then of course again this is again something you will not have, a whole section of things that are added by me, all different configurations that might be in here for making my installation flexible enough to switch between different customers. And then I'm checking, and the only thing that is different then is Roboflow, when you start the service, has a delay built in. That delay, out of the box 30 seconds, is there to make sure that your Roboflow is not starting before the Cumulus server is starting. If they're on the same server and they both start up at the same time, Roboflow starts doing opening connections to Cumulus, etc. They would fail if the Canto, if the service hasn't started yet. So the default is 30 seconds. I would leave it in any default in normal installation on 30 seconds. I do this just 5 seconds because I switch installations all the time, and otherwise I have to wait that extra time. And this is a normal acceptable change. So then I just save this, and now what I need to do is I notice that I have additional libraries that I'm using, so I have to make sure that I do add those additional libraries to this environment, so that it is actually using the right libraries. So I'm going to my lib folder, and in my lib folder I see that I have a couple of files, and I should compare those with my other Roboflow folder. Oh, that's not it. Here, lib. And then I can see the differences, and then I know, okay, I need to bring over those because apparently those are things. AWS is fine, but and Solar is fine, but all the rest I need to bring over because for some reason I'm using them in my installation. So this might be the case that they are there in yours, or they might not be because you don't have these add-ons. Okay, so that's basically it. I added an additional library here. So as I said, it's a good idea to really do a compare, have them side to side, and then exactly do a quick check if there was anything else that you might have added to this installation. So you can quickly verify the versions and see, okay, is there anything different? Is there anything that I added? And I know that, for instance, I have this, and there could be a newer version of the file watcher, or in this case there isn't, but there could be stuff in here that isn't maybe on the other side. Usually when I add those kind of things, I try to put them in a separate folder. That gives you the certainty that that will not go wrong. I could throw these away actually, just to make the comparison a little bit easier. And you can see that now I have exactly the same library. So the final part was a little bit more work, a little bit tricky, but this is the safest way to migrate. The final step is, of course, to start your service again and to verify that everything that was there before is there now. And I'm going to do here Canto Roboflow, and I have here, of course, my Roboflow jar, and I noticed, let's have a look here on this side, I have here in Canto Roboflow, I had here the jar, but I also had this additional jar here, which is a plugin for Roboflow, which not all customers have, but some might have it. And so you have to make sure that you bring over that guy as well. And maybe you do that best before restarting Roboflow. So you see, it's easy enough to forget a little file. So then you can go here and go to your workflows and do a refresh here. Okay, of course, my web solutions was restarted, and there we go. So very important that we now check that we are able to go into our workflows, and maybe you do a test of one of your workflows. So thank you for joining this training movie, and this was a very easy way to show how you can upgrade. Make sure you keep your original folder for a while, because if something goes wrong, if for some reason it doesn't work and you need additional, you need a quick switch back to your original version, you can very simply stop the Roboflow service, rename the Roboflow that you just installed, and rename it back to the one you had here, and you're done. And you can start your service again, and everything's fine. Good. So the most important part of your installation is, and I actually forgot to say it in the beginning, is that before you uninstall the Roboflow service, that you check as which user this is running, and that you know that you have those credentials to put them in again. Because if Roboflow needs access to network resources, etc., if you don't put the user back that has that access, then Roboflow will not have access, and a lot of workflows will fail. So thank you for joining this training movie. One final thing you can do is, if you want to really know if everything went fine, well, you see already here it was complaining about the extra plugin. And why is it complaining about the extra plugin? Because I put in that extra functionality only after Roboflow was already started. So I have to redo that. So please check your logs that everything is fine after an upgrade. Otherwise you might run into trouble. And you see I forgot to put in the 5 seconds, so now it's 30 seconds restart. So that's something that I will definitely change for my installation, but don't do this on your installation. I want this back to 5 seconds. Go. Good. So if I go back in here now to my logging, show log, you will see that it has nicely started. So in the previous example it was giving the error because it had this plugin of Roboflow which was installed after Roboflow had already started. What I wanted to show you is now I can do show version and show version, show log, show version info. Now you see that I have nicely the 1.5 installed and not the Roboflow that was installed before. And so you can see that you have nicely the newer version here, and also in your Roboflow folder you can check the version.txt. It should also say the number of your latest version. Good. So thank you for joining this training movie, and hope to see you in the next one.